Hi there. I don't know if anybody's there. I can't see. This is my first time doing live, so I'm not really sure how it all works yet. And I've got my phone propped up here. I don't know. I feel like I should be seeing comments and questions, but I can't, so that's okay. I'm also going to have it up on my computer because I tried using my computer to do the live video and the camera stank, frankly. It was all grainy and faded out, and I didn't want to look worse than I do. So anyway, did throw in a little bit of makeup for tonight. Oh, and there's my calendar reminding me that I have Facebook Live. So let me swipe that away. So hopefully you're there, you're watching. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to me on my Facebook page. I do have that up right now. And what I will do is I will do a post on live. What are your questions? So if anybody's on here and you have a question, I would love to know what it is. And I will just be watching right here, and I will look for comments, and it should tell me. It's asking me other crazy things right now. So welcome if you're here. And so we're talking about writing. I know there's a lot of people out there who dream about writing, who would like to write, who maybe don't know where to get started. Maybe they've already written something and they're not real sure what to do with it. One of the questions that I got, oh hi, I see a one. So maybe somebody's there. One of the questions that I received when I was sending out information about doing the live video was what to do with a children's book. And that is a very, very good question. So it's hard to get published today, traditionally published, if we're talking about going to a publisher and having them contract you and they take care of all the business end and then send you royalties. Not quite that simple, but that's the scope of the general part of getting published traditionally. So picture books, unfortunately, are one of the hardest types of books to get in with a traditional publisher, but it's not impossible. I've met several authors who have done so and done so very successfully. So the key is to have a unique book, one that has its own voice and a story that is going to be desired for young readers and their parents. So obviously some books will fit that, some will not. I've self-published 2 children's books, and if you're going to do that, the first thing you want to do is find an illustrator. So this can be a friend, it can be an acquaintance. Sometimes people will have even their children or grandchildren, niece or nephew or someone who's just artistically capable, has that giftedness to illustrate it for them. I was fortunate to have a couple of friends of a friend who illustrated my children's books. So that's the first step if you're going to self-publish, which today is easier than it's ever been thanks to CreateSpace and many other self-publishing options, which of course CreateSpace is now part of Kindle Direct Publishing. That is all in one house. So whether you're going to be doing an ebook or a paperback book, that's your option. If you want a hardback book, unfortunately, CreateSpace and Kindle Direct Publishing is not an option for you, but there are plenty of other publishers out there. Some will charge you up front, some will just charge you royalties, where they will take a cut off of whatever you print for their services. So if you're going to go traditional publishing route, then you do not need an illustrator. So that's the good news. You can skip that step. But what you want to do is you want to look at what other books are out there that are comparable to yours, that would be for the same age group, the same kind of topic, and compare that to what's out there already. And then you research publishers. So who is taking submissions for children's books? Very, very few agents will take picture books or children's books. So you go directly to the publisher, and fortunately with the internet, it's just a matter of searching or you can look at some of the publishing or marketing books. So there's several out there that list publishers that work in different genres, including children's books. The Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators is a great resource for you to go to. It's very inexpensive to join that writers group. And so self-publishing, you find an illustrator, you decide who you want to go through, you put it all together, and then you click publish. So if you're not familiar with how to put it together, then I certainly would love a message. I can help you with that. I put mine together. I just used Publisher. It was a fairly seamless process, but I use Publisher a lot. I would also love to help you with that if I could. So that helps with children's books. So maybe you're not a children's book author. Maybe you don't know what you want to write, or maybe you've dabbled in writing a lot. Maybe you've submitted your books to a publisher. Maybe you've tried to get an agent. Possibly you've gone to critique groups or writing seminars, and you just haven't had any luck. So I want to use tonight just to go over a few basic, simple rules and just talk about the basics. And I'm going to start with one that frustrated me the most when I was a beginning writer back in, that would have been 2007 when I first started writing. I started with nonfiction and then a couple of years later with fiction. And the thing that I kept hearing, especially with fiction, is show, don't tell. So I heard it a lot. I heard it in seminars I went to. Read it in books that I read on writing. I heard it from critique partners, but no one really explained what that means. What does it mean to show and not tell? And so I want to give you some examples. I think I have some here that I've already created. Hopefully, maybe, let's see where they are, or not. Maybe I don't have those examples. Oh, wait, I saw it. So one quote that we see a lot is by Mark Twain, who is, of course, well known throughout the world. And a quote from him says, "Don't say the old lady screamed, bring her on and let her scream." So basically, when you're writing and someone screams, you don't want to say, Sarah walked in the room and screamed. You want to bring her in. You want to say, Sarah stepped into the room and her jaw dropped and a sound emitted from her mouth like a hurt animal. And we get the point that she screamed, but we're not actually just saying she screamed. So you want to make sure that you are showing what the character feels, you're showing what the character sees, you're showing what the character smells, tastes, hears. You want to get your reader in the scene with the character. So again, you don't want to say that Rob was angry when he found out that Becky bought $1,000 worth of clothes. You want to show, you want to have your character experience that with him. He pulls the receipt out of the drawer as he's digging for an extra set of keys, let's say, and his eyes widen as he reads the total, and fire burns in his belly, and he punches his fist into his hand. We can tell he's angry. We don't have to say he's angry. We want to get your characters and present them in such a way to your reader where your reader feels like they are right there with them. The betrayal, the joy, the satisfaction, the hesitation, the anticipation, whatever it is that your character is feeling in your story. You want to drop your reader right in that and help them feel it. And if you just tell them what's going on, then they're going to know what's going on, but they're not really going to feel like they're there. So you want to make sure you show them by letting them experience it with the character. You want to actually be experiencing everything from your character's perspective. And you want to do that with every character, whether you're in first person or third person. It really doesn't matter. You want to make sure that your reader is only seeing what they can see and only feeling what they can feel and only hearing and tasting and smelling what they can hear and taste and smell. So if they walk into a room, you don't want to say that it stinks because Roger left his muddy boots he'd been out working in the barn with by the front door. You want to actually have your character sniff and wince and crinkle their nose and maybe put their hand up to their nose and look around for where is the odor coming from. So you can see the difference, I hope. If you have any other questions about Show Don't Tell, feel free to let me know. Another rule that kind of took a little bit of getting used to was no adverbs. So it's quite interesting. I teach a writing class for homeschool students, and the program we use actually is a big advocate of adverbs. So when they're creative writing, sometimes it can add elements of depth that a new or young writer won't have. But the rule of thumb for writing professionally for publication is you want a handful of adverbs in an entire manuscript. So let's say 5 adverbs and 300 pages. So that might feel overwhelming, but really there's a lot of variation and a lot of words that we have at our disposal that are much more descriptive than saying like she walked in the room slowly. Okay, so of course slowly is our adverb, so it's describing how she walked. But instead we could say she sauntered, or she meandered, or she glided, or she tiptoed. All of those kind of denote that she walked slowly, but they have a more expressive attitude about them, and you can get a greater sense of what's going on with the character. So you want to use those strong verbs, and this is where the thesaurus becomes a writer's best friend. Also, because you don't want a lot of repetition of words. So whether you're looking for just how to say she walks slowly differently or whatever to replace the adverb that pops in your mind and you want to use that, or if you've just used a word once or twice already, then use the thesaurus. It's not cheating. It's a resource. It's a great resource. It is honestly, as a writer, my best friend when I am working on a project. And we all tend to use words that we're familiar with over and over and over again. And so that gets a little tedious. It gets to the point where we really become repetitious, and we'll lose our reader in that because they want to keep it fresh. They want to make sure that it's unique, and we're not letting our words take over the story that we're trying to tell or be attributed to our character too much, because that's when kind of we get in the way of our characters. So those are a couple of elements, and I'm just checking in to see if there's other questions that I need to answer. And so we talked about banned adverbs, general rule of thumb, we talked about that. Okay, so also let's talk about verbs, and I'll probably close with this tonight. We'll make it about a 15-minute-ish video so that in your busy life, if you come to watch later, that will just be 15 minutes, and then hopefully you'll have other questions you can send me for my next video. So we'll talk about verbs. So we talked about wanting to use strong verbs, and we know there's probably millions of verbs out there, but there's some that are just very common. They're not very descriptive, and we use them a lot. And so we call these banned verbs, even in the writing class that I teach to the homeschool students, as well as writing professionally. And you want to just try to avoid these as much as possible. And some of those, I won't say I've gotten all of them exclusively, but some of them would be be or been, pretty and ugly, not very descriptive, gorgeous, beautiful, horrific, horror, there's all sorts. Again, the thesaurus comes in handy. Nice, mean, good, bad. These are just very plain verbs. We want to make sure we use stronger verbs that just pack a punch in our writing, because we want to keep that reader engaged, and we want to describe the character, the plot, the scene as best we can with as few words as we can, so that we don't lose them in the process. So think about nice. What other words can you come up with nice? Sweet, gentle, peaceful spirit, maybe forgiving, graceful, full of grace, someone who is thoughtful, someone who's considerate. So all these words that just came up in just a few seconds instead of nice. Bad, that definitely we can come up with so many other verbs that would describe that. Oh, and you know what? I have thrown some adjectives in there. So yes, so we want to make sure we have strong verbs and strong adjectives. So you've noticed a theme with the adverbs and the verbs that we want to avoid, and the adjectives that we want to avoid that are just very common. We want them to be stronger. We want them to be more descriptive. We want to have characters that jump off the page and that your reader can relate to, that they can love or they can love to hate, because we know we always have to have the antagonist in there, and especially in some genres, there's got to be an evil person. Maybe not necessarily if you're writing a romance novel or contemporary fiction. It might be the situation or circumstance that's the antagonist. But quite often we will have that person who is the one who tries to thwart the plans or even attack. We read a lot in history and homeschool, and there's almost always an antagonist. There's someone trying to take over some country somewhere, or just being cruel, trying to have power, be power hungry, banishing mothers and wives and brothers, and killing enemies without any second thought. So we're going to have those characters in our book, and we still want them to pop off the page. We just don't want to say that they're bad or they're good. We want to really describe them. So hi, whoever's on, welcome. I was just getting ready to wrap up. So if you're just joining me and you have a question, I would love to see your question. You can just pop it down below my video or my other post. We've been talking about some basic writing tools for getting started. I answered one question I had received by email about children's books. So I love to talk about writing, and I could go on and on, but I will bring it to a wrap there. And next time, maybe we'll talk about active voice versus passive voice, working on grammar, which is something that's not a fun part of writing, but definitely a necessary part of writing. Maybe we'll even talk about commas, the dreaded comma. And I see there's, we had two people. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. I will give you another minute or two if you want to pop on a question. Of course, this will be recorded and posted, so you can watch it any time. And like I said, I'll take any questions. I would love to have them. Love writing. I would love to hear what you're writing, what you're working on, where you are in your journey. How long have you been writing? Are you just dreaming about writing? Have you been published? Are you done with your work? Are you trying to stay motivated? Would love to do that. Interacting with other writers is always motivating to me. So I'm glad those of you who popped on were here. I am grateful for any of you who watched later, and I would love to interact with you more. and hear your questions, hear your thoughts, hear your successes and things you've learned along the way. And so I appreciate it. And oh, I see something that has popped up. And there we go. Okay, so hi, Leanne. Welcome. I'm getting off now, so I hope you had a good evening and you can go back and watch the rest of it. And y'all have a great night.